Pluchino. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the True Life Podcast. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. I have an incredible guest coming all the way from Sheffield, where I heard they have incredible knife making tools over there. The cutlery I heard is amazing over there. Rudi Pluchino, a maestro of connection and customized lead generation. In a world of business where metrics often dictate the rhythm, Rudi Pluchino conducts a symphony of personalized outreach, specializing in customized lead generation. Rudy's not just about numbers. He's about building relationships with potential customers, prioritizing connection over metrics. Rudi, thanks for being here today, my friend. How are you?
I am good. I'm a little bit tired, but other than that, I'm very, very good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. It is coming towards the end of the day for us over here, about 10 o'clock at night. However, I think it's amazing that you and I can be on opposite sides of the pond over here and still have a great conversation and a relevant conversation about what's happening in the world today.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Should be should be interesting.
Agreed. Agreed. So maybe you can give people a little bit of your background. Like why marketing? Why lead generation? Why on LinkedIn, man? Who is this guy, Rudi?
Well, I suppose it started about a year ago. Uh yeah, being a bit stuck in what I was doing. I was doing like bar work, a little bit stuck in where I should go. Um, had the idea to move up here to get better job opportunities, go into sales, to eventually try to get myself to a position where I could work remotely. And here I am today, a year later, progressing on being able to work completely digitally. So this is the route that I've chosen. It's something that everyone needs, frankly, in any business. Everyone needs uh, lead generation or marketing or both, preferably. And this is why I've decided to go on this particular path. It's pretty simple.
It's pretty quick. It's pretty quick to take a year and figure out a way to work remotely. A lot of people struggle with making transitions in their life. And was it easy for you to do?
No, it definitely wasn't easy. Um, because it would have been around March that I actually moved up here, so definitely not easy. There's been a lot of ups and downs. I suppose in some people's eyes, it's definitely a lot easier than perhaps what they've done, because I know that there's plenty of people that you know might broach this point after doing what I've been doing for 5 odd years, right? Um, but because I'm very good intellectually at like operational side of things, I guess this is why I feel like I can do it now and am getting reasonable success.
What so run me through, like, let's say that I come to you and I'm like, Rudi, man, I got to get a little bit of lead generation, man. I wish that the True Life podcast had better marketing. I have an organic reach, but I just wish it had more people, man. Like, where would you take that conversation, man?
Well, I don't do marketing. I do
Okay.
self marketing for myself, so I'm
Okay.
just going to put that on the table.
Yeah.
Um, would not class myself as a marketer, but hopefully, eventually, if I get good at marketing myself, that is potentially something I would advertise. But at this, so if you came to me saying I need bigger audience, so on, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily do it for a podcast, but it's essentially cold outreach, right?
Okay.
It's cold outreach, trying to start conversations uh, with people about whatever their field is. So it's personalized per person, and it's trying to engage them in what they already do in their business. That's essentially it. So that's what I
What?
would do. From your account, I would send out like loads of connection requests. Everyone has their own personalized message, similar to yours, right? That was a part of my campaign, and I don't know if you have it to hand, but that's how this relationship started. And I would have never thought I'd be on your podcast today from it, but it's quite nice to be on your podcast from it. So yeah, I mean, you saw the message; it was quite nice. I feel like you responded well to it, and that is essentially what I would provide for people that would want to get lead generation from me. Is to essentially have nice outreach where people don't feel like, oh my goodness, this person is going to sell to me. Apart from me, I feel like there's people now that just in my inbox say no, not interested, thanks, even though I've tried to start a conversation with them. Like I haven't even tried to sell you anything, and you're saying no, not interested, thanks, like as if I have. So it also tells you how on guard people are, even if you're trying to start genuine conversation with them. People just immediately go, no, leave me alone. So yeah, that's essentially it, and
It,
and to scale as well.
yeah, it's interesting to think about what lands in your mailbox and what is it that people want from you. Like, and maybe this speaks to your route of kindness, but why is it like why do so many of us think that someone automatically wants to get something from you? It seems like that, whether it's in LinkedIn or pick your social media platform, it's just like, oh, this person's trying to sell me something. If they're even a real person, they're probably just a bot.
Um, that is a very valid point. I can't really speak to other social media platforms, if I could be totally honest with you,
Nice.
because I haven't been on other. I mean, I have an Instagram. It is dead, and I don't use it. And potentially, I might have an old Facebook that I haven't deleted. But in terms of being actively on social media, I am not. Apart from LinkedIn, I'm not anywhere else. But LinkedIn is a unique sort of beast of its own, where it's basically business networking. And I think to a certain degree, people either want to network with you or they want to perhaps conduct some level of business with you in the future. Or actually, how I started when I got this app in March was just randomly going to all the CEOs of really massive company and VPs like BlackRock, as Vanguard, just randomly going bloop at you bloop, and just like seeing it as a fun game,
Right.
not really having like any objective, just seeing who would just randomly connect to me. And I think there is a level of people just add people for the sake of it without any sort of intention. But if you do start a message, there is a level of intention behind it, which is also why I do the messaging as well, because I mean there is intention behind why I messaged them. So yeah.
What kind of response rate do you get? Like, I mean, I don't know if you can share that or if you have something in your mind. Is it like
Um
any idea?
it's actually reasonably high. So I probably have about a 50 to 60% connection rate. Uh like and I think out of that it is a good uh I think it would be about yeah, about 60% of those people respond because it's for the most part just conversational, right? It's not trying to say, "Oh, look at me. I've got such and such." It's, "Oh, I've seen what you do. I'm impressed by it. Um, tell me more." Essentially, that is the basis of my conversation starter, and I think for most people who aren't traumatized by these sort of metaphorical sales flashes where they unleash the contents of their metaphorical trench coats, they respond nicely, you know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree too. I'm curious in your opinion. Do you think most people can tell the difference between a legitimate person trying to contact you and like like a bot of some kind? Like seen some pretty interesting. I guess they're kind of spammy, but do you think that most people can tell or feel the difference between an authentic sort of outreach versus something that's just like a mass outreach?
Um. Yeah. I think generally speaking, if it is mass outreach, it will follow a script, right? It will have. I mean, I know it's getting better, but generally speaking, it will be a script with your name and perhaps your business inserted into like blanks, and that's
Right.
it. There's no level of, oh yeah, I've seen you work at such as they won't ask any sort of intricate questions about your business that would take, you know, a level of thought to actually ask, right? That's how you would tell, in my personal opinion. If it seems scripted, it is. And if it is scripted, it's probably a bot.
So, are you telling me that the really attractive Asian girl who's got an MBA from Harvard is trying to reach me probably is a bot? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yes.
With 0 followers?
I'm really sorry to tell you, Scott, but yes. As much as you might want it not to be, I think the likelihood is very high.
You know what? Like, I like to watch the profiles that are spammy and are bots, you know, and it's interesting to me to put myself in the mind of the person that's doing it just for like an exercise. And like, clearly, they find like a really pretty girl. So that seems to be a metric that gets people to reply back. And often, if you go to those bots, like
Yeah.
you'll click on it and you'll be like, this person has 12 followers from the same type of guy profile. You know, it's kind of interesting, like what kind of information those bots are giving back to whoever they're reporting back to. I think you can, you know, it would be interesting to open up the doors to LinkedIn and kind of check out the psychological profiles they have on people, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that would be very interesting. But I also think they definitely know what sort of profile they go for. I think I think to be honest, because they are bots, they just, you know, automatically send it out,
Right.
and the same sorts of people will follow them, which are probably, no offense to, before I say it, no offense to anyone who fits this demographic, but it is going to be uh like lonely men that don't get enough attention or don't know how to get that sort of attention from women, and therefore I hope that potentially this very obvious spot might actually be a woman that could be interested in them. They just really hope. I'm sure in like instinctively they know that there's a uncanny valley, right?
Hmm.
But they just ignore it because they're lonely.
What do
So
you think? What do you think those bots are fishing for? Are those? You think that those are like phishing scams? They're looking for credit cards, or they're just
I
any
I
idea?
I don't know, because I've also frankly gotten them as well. Like there's one, I don't know if you have it over there, but they basically message you thinking you're someone else, and they go, "Oh, sorry, no, this is so weird." Because I've first time, because it was so weird that I thought maybe it is. but then it's happened like 2 other times after that. It's like, oh yeah, this is like a phishing thing, and then they do the, oh, let's do a video call, and then it switches off immediately. So I think it's literally just data harvesting, right? It's data harvesting. I think it's just for any level of data. They just want your data, your face, name, location, and then potential. I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that thinks that could it could be like harvesting for digital identity fraud potentially. I don't know.
It's interesting. On some
Yeah.
level, it reminds me of like captchas. You know how like captchas get harder and harder and harder? Like, so
Yeah.
too is the technology with the bots. Like, you're like, oh, these guys are getting pretty good. You know, it's kind of interesting to see those two
Yeah.
things work together.
No, definitely it is. But actually, interestingly enough, that you bring up capture it doesn't actually need to be accurate whatsoever. All it's actually really scanning for is how you do it. It's not what you do; it's how you do it. If you do it in a human way, it's going to let you through, even if it's completely wrong. Well, at least for the ones that you click on. Oh, is click on all the traffic cones.
Mm.
Yeah.
What's the human way to do that versus the non-human way to do that?
Um, I think the human way, or the human way, I should put that in quotations,
Should
is
be a
to go.
book.
Yeah, potentially. Um, is just to somewhat struggle a bit, just to go. Oh, is it this square? That I don't know actually. Uh, just to take some time with it as opposed to doing it immediately, I guess.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. You know, it's interesting. I talk to a lot of people that are in a lots of different fields, and we find ourselves, especially in today's age and time and age, ending up in like this world of AI and these ideas. And you and I have kind of been talking about it with these bots and captures and stuff like that. What
Yeah.
Let me just shift gears here. Like, what's your take on the potential lead generation and its relationship with AI? Is that something that can be, given to AI to do, or what's your take on that? Is that a tool that can be used and leveraged, or what do you think?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it can definitely be leveraged in multiple different ways and in multiple different sections of lead generation. So, um, it so it can be used for the filtration. So it could be used to do the targeting of leads better by certain criteria. Uh, could be used to craft messages. Um, it could, yeah. I mean, it could be used for a lot of things in that sort of in lead generation in general. Yeah,
It's interesting to me. I think it also leads me to this idea of behavior. Like, it seems to me that whenever you're trying to reach out to somebody, regardless of what kind of outreach it is, whether you're trying to reach out to help somebody or you're trying to find lead generations, or you come back to this idea of behavior. And before we go too deep on this, what are you fascinated by behavior, or is it something that you find interesting, or what's your take on behavior?
I am definitely very interested in behavior. I've always liked psychology. It's yeah, and philosophy as well, although that's not necessarily behavior as such. But
Right?
yeah, I would say I'm very, very interested in behavior. I read a lot of psychology books and listen to them as well.
Nice. It makes sense. I can tell in the way in which you approach people and your philosophy of kindness that's that had to be part of your style. Like, and I see that same sort of I think I see that same sort of messaging in the things that I do, and I kind of gravitate towards that. They say like attracts like, water seeks its own level, and maybe it's the idea of reciprocity is why we use kindness. Is when you think about your approach to talking to people and reaching out to them, maybe you could speak about the relationship of kindness, psychology, and philosophy in the way you work.
Right. So, I suppose the reason why I approach people in the way that I approach them is, um, one, people like talking about themselves, and people like to be recognized. Those two things, I think, for everyone, will stay the same, right? Even if someone came to me with a message like I send out, I would be like, oh, that's actually really sweet, and they've actually like pointed out certain little bits that it's not just a copy and paste sort of thing. So yeah, I think in that sense I understand that to work because it would work for me. Um, and the reason why there's also another reason why I go about it that way, even for clients of mine, is because it also means that you're unlikely to burn bridges,
Hmm.
right? Because a lot of people burn bridges before they're even constructed because they go straight into it in a very salesy script and then they go, oh, no thanks. At least when I get a no thanks in my inbox, they're still connected with me. It's not a burnt bridge, and I could potentially approach them at a later point.
Yeah, it's a good
So,
point.
yeah.
What what do you what role does authenticity and vulnerability play in the outreach game?
Um, I think it also plays a role in the way that I market myself as well. I guess it just makes you a bit more relatable, a bit more human than people are really used to in the B2B sector. And yeah, it's also it's just good to be yourself, really. And now that I'm doing my own thing, I can be. Yeah, I was very frustrated from the previous two sales roles before I went to do my own thing. That a lot of it was very deceptive.
Mm.
You had to. It was basically try to shove it down their throats, say everything will be alright, even though there's been a lot of errors and things can go wrong. You have to say the complete opposite. And it's just nice not to have to do that. I can be completely transparent with people, say, look, some things, you know, it's life. That there is error in things. I can't guarantee you certain things because life doesn't come with guarantees, right? I could have the confidence that something may work, but I can't guarantee you anything.
You know, that speaks to this idea too, especially when it comes to sales or people that are doing things in their life that maybe they're not that they don't love to do. You know, for you, you said it was previous sales job, and for me, I was at a job where I felt as if the people with whom I was working for no didn't really care about me or the people that worked with me. They just cared really about numbers. What do you think? And that kind of sounds similar to the job you were at before. Like, do you think that like how much of that getting up and going to work at a place and not really caring to do it, how much wear and tear do you think that does on a person's like integrity and on their ability to go out and be happy? Do you think that plays a role in their all around well being?
I can only speak for myself and perhaps you, since you said that it's a similar thing for you. Uh, but yeah, I think it's been like that for all of my jobs. I don't think there's really been any places where I've worked where I go, oh, they really care for me. Apart from actually, you know what? To a degree,
Okay.
the bar that I worked at was probably the nicest place to work at. However, that just wasn't good for me physically because I would work pretty much every Friday and Saturday, and then there's 2 nights in a row drinking, and people behind the bar drink. And anyway, tangent. Let's throw that aside for a second. I think going back to the point of wear and tear, I think even for my 7 years, it's five. When did I start working? Would have been around 1920. So yeah, 5 years. I think that's enough for me. And I'm 25 at this point. I feel even just 5 years is a lot. It's changed. Yeah, it's quite weird being in this position. I still need to adjust to working for myself. I mean, I love it. I would never. I am going to fight to make this work as much as possible. But yeah, it's it's not good. It runs you down. It makes you more docile. Because you're working 9 to 5. That's like most of your waking day, and then you have a little bit of time to eat and sleep. Um, it's just somewhat degrading to your humanity as a person. I think personally that's my personal take on it.
Yeah, I agree. Our friend Thomas Hutchison says over here, how did you find your thing? I do the same on LinkedIn and speak to some incredible people. Some get it and chat for the sake of good conversation. Others are like, yeah, hi, okay, what's your offer? What are you selling? I think we covered it a little bit, but what advice would you give to Thomas here, man? Like, if someone came up to you and is like, how did you find the thing you're doing? What gave you the courage to leave where you were at and start doing what you're doing? Like, give us the lowdown on that.
How did I find my thing? So actually this sort of came about from doing a commission only position, where I did get a lot of leads doing it this way, and I had a certain knack for it. I kept on passing leads over without anything actually being closed on the other side, and I thought, well, I'm good at this, and I know how to do this to scale. I've thought, why not do it for myself and charge for it? You know, it's a wanted skill. I'm doing it for someone for free, and it's not really being appreciated either. Uh, and yeah, no, and also, frankly, I think the people that I have spoken to have have liked me, right? Because I've had few people that would have been interested in the thing that I was selling. But as soon as I passed it to that person, they're like, "Oh no, I'm okay." So I realized that there was something in that where it made more sense to do it for myself and then do it for other people, but like through them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally
Yeah.
makes sense. It sounds to me that you have a set of skills that either you have learned along the way or maybe you were born with them. You say when people when you say people like you, like, and I like you. I like our conversation so far. Like, it's fun to talk to you. Like, you have like a really cool vibe about you. But what is that? Like, you probably know what it is. Like, are you when you talk to people, are you like trying to monitor what they're thinking, or when you talk to people, are you trying to find things about them that you want to bring out that are interesting, or what is it about your conversational style that you think people really like?
I think it's very organic, and I don't really have any preconceived notion as per where the conversation is going to go. Even on a supposed sort of discovery call, where traditionally you have to have like a set of rules to be able to sell and close them, so and so forth. I think because of my general organic conversation flow, where there isn't any monitoring of the other person. Now, I am very good on a subconscious level of reading people in conversations, but I don't do that consciously. And that's just something that trickles in the back that I actually can't help, frankly. Uh, but I'm just very good at it. And that's probably something that I am born with.
Yeah, those skills seem to be that way. Have you ever been on a call or like a discovery call or a sales card or a lead generation call and it just went way off the rails and it was kind of funny?
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of times, like not in this current position, but in the other sales jobs, where I was cold calling hundreds of people a day. There's one in particular uh, where I was asking, "Oh, could I email you?" And he said, "Oh no, I'm scared of email. I'm too old fashioned." And I basically said, "Oh, would you perhaps prefer if I sent across uh, carrier pigeons, like a flock of carrier pigeons, and perhaps a letter afterwards, just in case those carrier pigeons got lost on the way." That is probably one of the best ones that I've had on a call. It's
That's pretty
still
good.
somewhat on topic, but it flowed really smoothly at the time as well. And everyone, yeah. See, I had moments like that in that call center where everyone looked around at me. It's like, what is this person saying on the phone? But I just did it with a level of confidence and so smoothly that people think, why are you saying that, Rudy? But also, how are you saying that at the same time? So yeah, I would say that's probably one of the funniest tangents. But admittedly, in these calls that I've had with people, it's been very direct, very honest. I've laid everything out on the table and just been very straightforward with them. You know, so yeah, it's worked out, and I haven't had tangents as such. And I think, to be honest, when I get on calls with people, people want my services, so they want to talk about exactly what I could do for them, very much straight away.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, and it kind of reignites my passion for faith in a way. In that, it's nice when a stranger can reach out to you, or you can have a conversation with somebody about doing business with them and do it in a faithful and honest way. For so
Yeah,
long it seems that we're always, like we spoke earlier in the podcast, like a lot of the times people are like, "Oh, you just want something from me," or "I don't want to talk to you." But it's nice to
yeah,
be able to reach out and have a real conversation like that, right? Have you most of your calls are like that, you
definitely.
think? Yeah.
I think the calls, once they're on calls with me, it's I mean, I'm very open to having chats with people, and I do have chats with people. But like yesterday, actually, I did have a chat with someone, and he was very nice. He's we were going to exchange knowledge with one another. Because he's a sales coach, like he's very good at the selling side of things. I'm very good at like doing the initial outreach, admittedly. But yeah, anyway, there's knowledge exchange with certain people. There's definitely been interesting people that I've made friendships with. I did have a collaboration with a charity before the person decided to become a singer-songwriter, and learn the guitar and just dropped everything, all of his social media, LinkedIn, everything, and just decided to go do that. Um, so yeah, definitely met some interesting people. Yeah, and I'd say I've actually made some genuine friends on the platform, you know, um, in this short amount of time. Like there's one where he's like a jeweler. He's a very nice guy, and yeah, that we do just have rambly chats sometimes at night. If he calls me, yeah. So it's quite nice.
That's kind of awesome. It makes me smile. I think that's a cool thing to get to have like a chance encounter like that, and then all of a sudden you end up, who knows, maybe working together in a business or helping one another out on some level like that. It just, like I said, it kind of brings faith to me to think that things like that can happen on that level. It's interesting to think about. What about, you know what? It seems like all of these particular escapades could lead to a book or something like that. Have you ever thought about taking what you're doing now and maybe writing, being like a writer about some of the stories that have happened and some of the businesses that you've helped and some of the journeys
Uh,
that you've been on?
I mean, I've been told I could have a whole podcast for all the stories that I have, especially like before coming here. I've lived I've lived a lot. Is all I could really say to that. So yeah, I could potentially write a book. I would need someone. I'd probably need a ghostwriter, like someone to just you know be there while I can just spout this stuff to them, and they can write it. Because I can write posts and so on, but doing a whole book is another thing. It takes a lot of thought and methodology, which I mean I could, but yeah, I'd prefer someone to write it for me. If I'm going to be totally honest with you.
What kind of life did you live before this? Like maybe you could share one of those stories with us about.
Sure, yeah. I suppose I did get asked on my recent post to elaborate on hippie adventures. Yeah, so I mean, I lived in Glastonbury for 2 years before this, and yeah, it was definitely a very interesting time. Because I had yeah, the, I didn't even know where to begin with that. Just a lot happened in those 2 years, and yeah, I mean, I met some very cool people. Had cool neighbor lady that I kind of fancied with a python. That was kind of witchy. But that is just kind of weirdly flirted with. Yeah, me and my friend, she flirted with and kind of led us both on. But at the same time, as soon as we tried to do anything, she would like lean back and not be interested. So that was a bit confusing. I had loads of drum circles that I went to on the tour. If you have ever heard of the tour, um, yeah, loads of hippies played drums up there at night, like around campfire. Very very fun. Um, uh, Also, went on like a random journey with this guy to find bits of the Holy Grail. Because I have a book, actually have a book back there that has like a map of all the locations in Somerset where there's been uh artifacts of the Holy Grail found. So I can't really pick anything specific. If I'm going to be totally honest, it's also still very early for me, and I'm kind of waking up.
It's awesome. When you
Yeah.
when you when you search for the whole like I've read a few of the King Arthur myths that talk about searching for the Holy Grail, but what like what's that all about, man? Sometimes when I think of the Holy Grail, I think of like finding magic mushrooms. Like sometimes that's the Holy Grail for me, you know, like because you could see all kinds of stuff, man. But were you guys looking for the actual Grail, or like what was going on there, man?
So as far as I'm aware, I think, to be honest, it it was more of a metaphysical thing. It's a metaphor for like you know a woman's womb,
Mm,
right?
right.
Because it you know it there's certain yeah it was basically a brotherhood to try to find eternal life, but the eternal life is from you know that is
Yeah.
essentially like a metaphor for woman's womb.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, there's obviously artifacts from that time, and I think artifacts from the actual Brotherhood. but I don't think there was a holy grail as such, like
Mm,
a singular holy grail where if you drank from it, you'll become mortal. I think that was just essentially it's the metaphysical thing of a womb and the power of it. That's it, and being able to, I suppose harness it in some sort of esoteric way.
mm,
I haven't really delved deep into that because there's lots of schools and thought. It's it's sort of a similar thing with like the philosopher's stone, right? People think,
mm,
oh, it's a real physical stone that you can find, but no, it's actually just essentially a point where on your sort of spiritual journey where you essentially have both incredible power but incredible uh, uh sort of restraint to be at an equilibrium with oneself.
mm.
So yeah, that's essentially it. I went on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, there you go.
No, it's all good. I think it paints a nice picture of of the world we live in and just different philosophies and understanding the different way people see, especially when it comes to the Holy Grail or scriptures and stuff like that. I always find it interesting to get people's opinion. Thomas has another one for us. He says, "It sounds like you developed a very special set of skills thanks to a regularly organized society. I feel like the system in the UK from school up gives you a good idea of people in general, but individual agenda is harder to work out. I often realize hours later after sharing my life story, oh shit, they were trying to sell me something. I thought we were friends." Thanks, Thomas.
So um I don't know about the school system giving you a good idea of people in the UK. I think it's just dependent on person to person, um, and depends on how you've grown up. But yeah, I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? Is that a lot of people do have an agenda behind them, and I don't know about telling people for hours of my life story and then them trying to sell me a watch. I've not had that happen in real life, perhaps digitally, but
Mm.
in real life occurrences, I don't think that happens as such. Or maybe it does. I don't know. But everyone has an agenda to a degree, even if it's trying to convert someone to your way of thinking, right? And this is also the thing of everyone sells because everyone has a preconceived notion of what they think is right, and everyone they talk to, they want to convert to that. And it doesn't actually have to be like a religious thing whatsoever. It's just I think naturally people are inclined to do that. And it's not like even an intentional agenda. It just happens out of human nature.
Do you think it's easier to, on the topic of outreach, what are some of the pros and cons of in person versus doing it online?
Um so the only in-person sort of outreach in terms of sales
Yeah.
is on the phone.
Mhm.
And on the phone, you can't just randomly call someone out of the blue and try to start conversation. I would say I've not tried it, but I don't think it would work. Just because I know from myself, if someone tried to call me, say, and just tried to have a genuine conversation with me, and I don't know them, I'd think, what is going on? What do you want from me? And yeah, I just find that really bizarre. So I guess the main difference between digital and in person, i.e., cold calls, is that in digital form you can take a lot longer route, right?
Right.
You can take a more friendly route. You can get to know them a bit, and you can kind of actually develop a relationship and be a bit. You can, yeah. You basically do it that way, as opposed to a phone call where basically you just need to state your business and be done with it. And if they're interested, they'll let you know. If they're not, they're not. And there's no way to develop a friendship on the phone. But there's also the caveat where if they don't like you, they don't like what you have, then you've burnt a bridge. Which I think the main thing is digitally, you can play a lot safer. You can keep bridges intact, and you can keep them there open and just kind of check up on people, because there's people that will say, I'm not interested now, right? I mean, you can still do that on the phone as well. It depends how open they are to being called every few months and getting checked up on. I think you also need to have a reciprocal person to be able to do that in person. It's not like you're going to their place of business and doing it. I think in person in that sense would probably actually be a lot nicer. Although it'd be a lot weirder now because we're all. I say weirder is more just because of the digital disconnect uh, that we all live through. Frankly, that would probably make that a bit weird.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up digital disconnect because on some level, like if you're on a phone or if you're in person, if you're in person, you can see different attributes about people.
Yeah,
Sometimes when you're on a phone, you can hear those different attributes. You can be like, "Oh, this person's a little bit older," or "This person's a little bit younger." But if you're
yeah.
just reaching out via email or something like that, you kind of miss those metrics. How do you work around those things? I know for me sometimes, depending on how the person sounds, I'll change my tone, either mirror it or be more respectful or try to talk as an equal, but you can't really do that just over like text messaging, right? What is there a way you work around that, or what do you think about that?
Um, I mean, I think so because my primary messaging is through LinkedIn, and as much as I do email, I wouldn't highlight it as a thing. Well, I'm good at the operational side. I'm just not good at the copy. But I would say the main thing through something like LinkedIn is that you have, for one, you have time on your side,
Hmm.
right? Primary thing in a digital situation, you have a lot of time to prepare an answer, and a response, an immediate response, is expected nor wanted necessarily from you either. So you have a lot of time to essentially mirror certain attributes in conversation. So for instance, if someone messages you back and forth in a letter style, right? And they do, dear Rudy, the kind regards, Scott. Um, it's you could mirror that back out of respect and continue the conversation in that way, even if you haven't initiated it as such, right? So that's an advantage to digital, whereas in person or on the phone, you have to be a lot quicker, and there's certain things that you might not pick up on straight away. Whereas in digital form, you can pick up on them over time. You have a lot more time to think over what to do, what to say, when what's the right moment to say certain things. It's like a delayed version in a sense. Yeah,
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 yeah, it's interesting to me, Rudy. Just like that, my friend, we're almost up on an hour, man. Like that's how conversations go, man. We start, we
yeah.
power through them, but it's always fascinating to me to get to talk to someone and pick their brain for a little bit, man, and see what they do and how they do it and why they do it and why they like to do it. And I appreciate your time, man. But before I let you go, what do you have coming up? Like if someone was listening and they want to reach out to you or they want to just talk to you, man, where can they find you?
Um, they can find me on LinkedIn, and that is about it, really. That is
All
the only platform that I'm on. If they want to reach out to me, and we can, I don't know, collaborate, have a good conversation, business partnership, whatever seems good to you.
Well done, my friend. Well done. Well, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for hanging out with us. Hang on briefly afterwards, Rudy. I want to talk to you real quickly. But everybody else, thank you for hanging out with us. Thomas, Justin, everybody over here in the comment section, Scott. Thank you guys very much for hanging out, man. I really appreciate your time. Go and check out Rudy, and I hope you have a wonderful day. That's all we got. Aloha.